welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. My name is Emma and today I'm going to be running through my top 10 books that I read in 2017. Yes, I know everyone already did this video like last month, but I've never been on time to anything, so why change that? Also, do stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm going to be running a giveaway where you could win the brand new paperback release of Final Girls by Riley Sager. So stay tuned to the end and I'll let you know how you could win that. I don't have any particular order for my top 10. I haven't numbered them in order of how much I liked them. These are just all 10 books that I bloody loved in 2017. So in no particular order, let's go through the books. One of my favourite books that I read in 2017 was The Power by Naomi Alderman. If you haven't heard of this book by now, you have probably been living under a rock, but just in case you have, welcome back from your rock. I will tell you what this book is about. This is set in a world where women develop the power to electrocute people from their fingertips. So suddenly the tables are turned and women are the most physically powerful sex. The book then spans the next few thousand years to see how things would change. The majority of the book takes place just over the immediate next few years, but it is framed at the beginning and the end by a world that is thousands and thousands of years in the future where women are well established as the most powerful, and a male writer is writing to his female boss to try and get his book published, where he is trying to make a case that once men were powerful, and she won't believe him. She's very dismissive. It's a very humorous opening to the book because women will find it very recognisable. The way that she talks to him is very similar to how male bosses can often talk to female employees, unfortunately. But that aside, the rest of the book is not funny at all. My battery's flashing. I knew this was going to happen. Where was I? Talking about the power. This book, I think, will just make people question the assumptions that they currently hold about gender and about the hierarchy that we currently have. And what I think is really interesting about it, and why men should read this as well, is that it's absolutely not saying men are bad, women are good, or vice versa. It's really showing how power hierarchies in any way are bad, how they will lead to terrible cruelty and terrible injustice. The women in this world where they get the power become really awful, start doing really, really terrible things to men. And what's scary about this book is that reading it, it kind of makes sense. You can see why they're inspired to do this as kind of whether it's motivated by revenge or by this new rush of power to their head. And it also makes sense of why the world is currently the other way around, why men abuse this power, because why wouldn't they? But I hope that if enough people read it, it will really illustrate why we need to address the imbalances of power and acknowledge them and try to correct them. I feel like I didn't do that justice at all in that wrap-up. We read it for my book club with some of my friends and we talked about it for like 3 hours. There was just so much to say in this book that I couldn't possibly cram it all into a few seconds in this video. So please, please go out and read that book. It's absolutely phenomenal. Even Margaret Atwood thinks so. It says so right here on the front. The next book is probably one of the saddest books I read in 2017, as well as being one of the best, and that is The Space Between Us by Thrity Umrigar. This is about 2 women living in Bombay, one very rich and one works for her as a servant, and it's about the separate hardships in each of their lives. And there's just so many sad things going on to both of them, but what I found most eye-opening to me, or this is how I interpret it, is that even though the rich woman does have terrible, terrible hardships in her life, and as individuals they are both just women coping with these terrible things going on in their lives, there is still a tendency on the rich woman's part to view herself as equally a victim as the poorer woman. Whereas reading this, I felt like the poor woman had to deal with her own individual heartache as well as the injustice of the class divide. And so I think those of us who are privileged can sometimes have a tendency to try and make ourselves feel equal to everyone else and say that we're all just humans, we're all going through the same thing, and we feel like that's a good mentality to try and say that we're all the same. But actually, that's still not acknowledging our privileges. Anyway, I loved it, it made me cry, it made me think. Just another great, really powerful book. Okay, next I want to talk about The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is obviously a big, famous, prize-winning book, but I had never read it before this summer. And I can honestly say it deserves all of the hype it has ever got. In terms of the plot, this is one of those books where nothing really happens. I was talking to my sister the other day and we were saying that we both have this soft spot for books where nothing happens at all really, but you just so fall in love with the characters that you care about everything on every page. This is one of those. It's about an Indian American boy growing up in Massachusetts, raised by his Indian immigrant parents, and his struggle to unite the 2 separate parts of his culture and the 2 separate parts of his identity. And again, it's another one that made me weep, just all of the ways in which his parents want to do the right thing for him and have brought him here to get a better life, but how hard it is for them seeing him just walk away from everything that they find familiar and from their culture and their traditions. It's a general theme, to be honest, that always makes me cry in books, is parents and children not understanding each other and not understanding the things that they're doing to show their love for each other, and this book has that in spades. I intend to go back and read everything that Jhumpa Lahiri has ever written now, because this book was just really profound for me. A book that I don't have here in physical form, I actually do own it but I've lent it to my friend right now, is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. And again, this is another one where I'm sure you've heard of it if you haven't been living under a rock. It's getting made into a movie now, which is going to be fantastic. It's a YA novel about the Black Lives Matter movement that became a New York Times bestseller, which is just so exciting. It's about a teenage girl named Star who is in the car when her best friend is shot by a police officer. And it's a truly harrowing opening, but so important right now and so relevant right now. And the book goes on to explore in really incredibly persuasive and powerful detail the way in which society creates this circle of alienating young black teenagers and making white people be afraid of them and raising black people in this world where white people are afraid of them, which can lead to such terribly violent acts as an innocent black teenager being shot by a police officer because he's afraid of him. It's just so unspeakable that that is the world that we currently live in. But this book, while it is really upsetting and will make you so sad and angry, also does have an amazing thread of hope running through it. I think it's really exciting and wonderful that that was such a bestseller, because the thought that there are so many people out there reading this book really does inspire me that change could happen. It won't happen quickly, but it's books like this that will make it happen. Another YA book on my list is The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. This also falls into that category of books where nothing much happens, which has been a complaint that I've heard from a few people about it, but I just absolutely adored it. I didn't mind at all that not much happened. The book is about a teenager named Cameron Post growing up in Montana and realising that she's a lesbian. And she lives in this pretty religious small town that is not very accepting, and the first half of the book is about her discovering her own identity and having these few secret romances. And it is very slow moving, but the writing is honestly so beautiful. This is a book that I sometimes do skim read books, and I didn't skim read this one at all because every word was just beautiful. I want to listen to the audiobook just so I can hear every word out loud, because it painted the world so thoroughly and beautifully. I have talked about this book a lot already because I read it with Emma Tobias for our Girl Sex 101 book club, so I will link to that video so you can go and watch me ramble about it. But basically, the second half of the book is after she is sent to a conversion camp by her very religious aunt who finds out that she's a lesbian. And then the whole last half of the book is set there, and it's about the friends that she makes there and what she learns about herself there. So yeah, I loved it. I filmed a few of these in a row, so I've had quite a lot of wine at this point. And it's a Sunday night when I'm filming this. Yay for work in the morning! Okay, the next book on my list is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, which I honestly don't have the words to explain. It's a very unusual book that just completely grabbed my heart. Eleanor Oliphant is this rather sad and lonely character. She has a lot of eccentricities and anxieties. What I really liked is that the book doesn't encourage you to laugh at her at all. She's got a past that we don't know about but we'll discover as the book goes on, and the main plot of the book happens when she and somebody else that she works with are both there when an old man collapses in the street, and they both look after him together, and then they form this unlikely friendship, the three of them. And it's all about Eleanor's quest for love and friendship and to discover her own past and her own story. And it really is just unlike any book I've read before. I couldn't compare it to anything. It just stands alone in a category all of its own. So if you've been hearing the buzz about this one, add to that buzz, you should buy it. Another book that I don't have as a physical copy because I read it on my Kindle is Anything You Do Say by Gillian McAllister. And this is a book that really stuck with me. I really enjoyed Gillian McAllister's first book, so I was excited for this one. And this one just, smashed through my expectations. It was so good. It's a kind of Sliding Doors style parallel universe story, but if Sliding Doors wasn't a lovely romantic story with a charming Scottish man, it was a horribly scary thriller. The book starts with this woman being followed home from a nightclub, and it's really spooky. It's a situation that a lot of us have found ourselves in before. She can hear him following her no matter which weird turns she takes, and she is really running through all of the possibilities in her head of what might be about to happen to her. It's very unnerving, very horribly familiar, so much so that you really empathise with her when she hears him coming up right behind her and swings around and pushes him as hard as she can so that he falls down these stairs. And that is where the timeline splits into two options. What happens if she stays and calls the police, or what happens if she runs away? And oh god, I could barely breathe while reading this because everything that happened, I was like, I can see myself getting into that situation. I can see that happening to me. And just, holy shit, the consequences are not good. Next up, we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which was such an unexpected addition to this list for me. I thought I was just reading a fun summer read that was going to make me smile. I had no idea this was going to make me sob in public on a train. This was going to be one of my favourite books, definitely of this year, if not ever. It's about a girl who is commissioned to write the autobiography of this old Hollywood movie star called Evelyn Hugo, who is very, very famous, more so even than from the movie she was in. She is mostly famous for having had 7 husbands. And she's notoriously private, she never really gives out interviews, but she has decided to let this young reporter, Monique, come and tell her life story. And Taylor Jenkins Reid is a goddess, because through this amazingly romantic, page-turning book, it's all about the media's treatment of women. It's about sexism, and it's about race and sexuality. It's got amazing bi-representation. It's got a love story to rival all love stories. I think I might ship the main couple in this more than I ship Jack and Rose from Titanic, and anyone who knows me in my life will know what a big deal that is. And as well as being just outstandingly, heart-wrenchingly beautiful, it also has this twist at the end, and everything comes together in this amazingly unexpected way. This book manages to be everything that you want it to be. It is the beach read that you pack in your suitcase thinking it's going to be a light summer read, but then it's just so much deeper than you were expecting. I'm going to read it again, to be honest. I'm going to read it again right now. Okay, final 2. I've got Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, which I have also talked a lot about, and I will link to the video where I talked about it. But this is the book that managed the very rare feat of being compared by me to Jane Austen's writing, who is like my all-time top gal. It's about a whole cast of characters living in Shaker Heights, Ohio. There's this very rich family with 3 very different children, and then there is also the single mother and daughter that they are renting out one of their properties to. And we really, really get to know every single character in that cast. Celeste Ng is brilliant at putting us inside the heads of all of them, and whether we like them or not, really getting us to understand their motivations and their worldviews. So to be honest, even if there was no plot, I would have just loved reading about all of these characters for the whole book. But then there's also this very gripping plot about an adoption court case. So a family that adopted a baby, and then her real birth mother showed up and wanted her back. And all of the characters in this book fall on different sides of that debate, so it causes all kinds of drama between them. But through the court case itself, Celeste Ng also manages this very poignant exploration of race and of motherhood. There's honestly so much going on in this book that it's just making my words come out all garbled. It might also be due to the wine. But the title, Little Flowers Everywhere, is a really good indicator of what this book is really about. And the dedication, actually, I'm going to read you the dedication. It says, "To those out on their own paths setting little fires." This book is about all the ways that you can start fires in your world, and every character in this book, in their own very different way, has started a fire. It really has so many intricate portraits of human nature. That's what made me compare it to Jane Austen. I want more people in my life to read this book because it's a book that I really want to talk about and discuss with people. Which brings me to, finally, my last book on this list, and probably my top book of the year. That is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This is my first Fredrik Backman that I've ever read. I've heard so much about him before, so I'll definitely be going back and reading those books that everyone loves. This one I've heard is a lot grittier than his other books, so I'm looking forward to the light relief in comparison of those books, because yes, this one was very gritty. But it's set in a small town where hockey means everything, and it's all about how values and worldviews can seep into communities. And also about the power of sport and of teams, and how this can be really damaging. How teams will stick together in the worst ways and defend each other in the worst ways, but also hurt each other in the worst ways if they're not acting in the interest of the team. I will say that having been someone who doesn't care about sport at all, this book did a really clever job of highlighting the dangers of small towns that care about sports and this team mentality I was just talking about, but also by the end of it making me really fall in love with the idea of sport. I got to the last page and just burst into tears of joy, which I feel like I never would have done before because I wouldn't have cared about sport. Honestly, there's nothing I can say beyond just read this book. This was my top fave of the year. I probably should have talked about it at the beginning of the bottle of wine, not at the end of the bottle of wine, because now I'm really running out of ways to make my sentences make sense. But if I had to sum up what it's about toxic masculinity, it's about small towns and communities, it's about sexual violence, it's about families, and it's about hope and change. There you go. Nailed it. So those are my top 10 books I read in 2017, and honestly I love every book that I've just talked about so much. I could just hug them and read them all over again. But now we're going to move on to the giveaway and talk about a book that I didn't mention as part of this list, but it was probably the most fun book I read this year, and that is Final Girls by Riley Sager. This book came out in paperback yesterday on January the 25th, and I am now giving you the chance to win it. This book is about the idea of the final girl, the girl who's always the last one standing in those 90s slasher movies, the last one to survive. In this book, there are 3 final girls who survived these horrible mass murders, but at the beginning of the book, which is set years after each of these murders took place, one of the final girls is murdered. So the other 2 have to group together to figure out who is coming for them. If you're a fan of Scream and other 90s slasher movies, then this book could not be more perfect for you. And if you want to win it, all you have to do is make a post on Twitter or Instagram using the hashtag FinalGirls. That's all you have to do. You can get creative in what you want to say about the book, but do link your post in the comment section below so that I can go and find everybody who made a post. You have 1 week to do that, and I will go and randomly choose a winner from everybody who posted and send you this book. The competition is open to anyone, no matter where in the world you live, though if you do live further away from England, the book just might take you a little bit longer to get there, but I will send it. And that's all from me, so do give this video a thumbs up, and please do leave me a comment letting me know what your favourite book of 2017 was, because I love to know what everyone's been enjoying this year. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for new videos every Friday. See you next time!